Your boy is sleep deprived with a brain fried, and I'm not gonna lie, I love it. A lot has happened, and we got a ton to get into here today in the realm of insane theories about potential future content, progress in this very interesting story, and what might come next, people. So strap in, let's get into part 2 of this ongoing series. So before we get into the madness, as I've been saying, be sure you guys are subscribed to the channel and staying tuned. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I can promise you this channel is going to be the best place to go to for up-to-date news on this, as well as very high-level speculation and theory crafting, because it's not just coming from me, it's coming from a band of like 16 individuals who are constantly working on this, basically getting back the dream team back in the Starr Park days on this as well. Danny puts it perfectly here, shouting out the Starchive team working around the clock, monitoring 16 hours of footage here just on the first days. So the Starchive homies, along with myself, have been grinding and will continue to grind to make sure you guys are all caught up to date with the fun theories, speculation at a very accurate level. But to start things off here, just a little bit ago, we began day 2 of the CCTV footage, which we are going to be getting into, but we also need to get into a lot of significant things that happened during the daytime of day 1. One very important thing that we've caught on, seeing that we've made it through an entire day of this CCTV footage, is a timeline for you all. We have D-Virus pointing out the cycles that we've come across, which you guys can take note of if you'd like, and Pardal points out that these timestamps are all in the local time of Japan, JST, UTC +9, or CST 14. Now, of course, as I said before, we made it to the second day of the CCTV footage, making our way into the Matrix, where I prefer to live at the minute. So as I'm recording at the minute, we are in the nighttime, and again, we will be circling back to some significant things that have come out here during day 2, because there has been a lot of changes. But what we need to get into is the rustling and bustling time period during the daytime within Starr Park on the very first day, and some of the significant things that we found. The absolute goats of Starchive actually documented all of these time periods throughout the day before what we're looking at the minute on day 2 at nighttime. I'm telling you, they're putting in work. Of course, here I'm not able to document every single time period of the day, but we have footage of different time periods, such as dawn here, taking a look at when the sun finally rises. So we're seeing a version of Starr Park where none of the members are there yet. Things are just kind of quiet, but the sun's coming up, right? We still see custodians and stuff like that, workers at the park, but we're also able to see a glimpse at different themes and settings within Starr Park, some of which haven't been seen before. Of course, drawing to some really interesting theories, which we will be going over in this episode today for future update themes coming around the corner and maybe new brawlers coming out. There's a lot of potential with this CCTV, but as we make it out of the dawn time, we find ourselves around the noon portion of the day, where we can finally see people rustling and bustling throughout Starr Park, the intended Starr Park, the good version of Starr Park back in the day in 1995, before everything went bad. And when we are looking at all of this footage, we're finally coming across some really interesting stuff. Of course, there's a lot of characters that don't really mean a whole lot. They're just normal day-to-day people walking around enjoying Starr Park, but at the same time, we're seeing individuals much like Bull and other characters from Brawl Stars way back in the day. For example, here in the top left-hand corner, we see Bull working in the Bull's Diner, cooking up some grub for everyone. And Bull is not the exception here throughout the park. There has been a bunch of other sightings of different brawlers that are currently present within Brawl Stars, much like Buster here. Here's another view of a potential Buster character inside of Brawl Stars. While at the same time, we also are seeing people like Piper here. So as time goes on, I'm sure we'll be able to see other individuals popping up that is present within our game. Just a good look at Bull there. We can see him plain as day. So they definitely stand out like a sore thumb because we recognize them, and then the other people are just kind of there. Now, to be quite honest, there is a lot of very interesting stuff that happens during the day. It's quite chaotic. There's a lot of people at Starr Park. There's people at the arcade. There's a ton of people at Bull's Diner. There's people in the main part of Starr Park, the lobby, or whatever you'd like to call it, the entry point. But then we are also seeing a ton of different themes within Starr Park and actually are able to see it in different perspectives, right? We pretty much so know every single environment within Brawl Stars, but there are also little interesting details that we haven't been able to see at like a person's perspective within the park. A good example can be seen here in the top right hand corner monitor that is subject to some really interesting theories. And skipping ahead also here. Here's another look at what we just ended up seeing. There has been theories that, there are things that we haven't really seen within Starr Park and could be a potential theme that's around the corner. We have already a ton of existing theories that Willow's family will be updated here shortly. We even speculated that it might make sense for Willow to come out in this update that just came out, and seeing that we are seeing this here, it might make sense. Now, of course, it was later debunked, seeing that we have seen something like that in the past, but I guess it's a little bit different seeing that it's within the jungle. While at the same time, another really interesting theory that was created after seeing daytime footage of Starr Park was this here, Manic Panic, a name that has never been seen before. Of course, it can be speculated that this is something within the jungle theme of Brawl Stars, but again, having a name to something I think is very impactful. Manic Panic. We're still very early on in the CCTV footage, but as we are going to be discussing a little bit later on in this video here, it's nice to see a version of Brawl Stars that isn't going to be like nuts or chaotic. But right now is when we should be trying to find interesting details that we haven't seen yet that might tie to a future theme coming around the corner or a future brawler fitting that theme. The Starr Park CCTV has a very interesting tie or resemblance to what we've seen from the WKBRL. Instead of a radio, we have live footage. But in the past, the WKBRL live stream was a treasure trove of Easter eggs, giving us future content around the corner. So what we're talking about here might sound a little bit nuts when we're trying to connect possibly future themes and future updates around the corner, but seeing that that was kind of the bread and butter of the WKBRL as well as lore, it makes a ton of sense that that is also a possibility with the CCTV, and I think it's also incredibly important that we try to make those connections, as it's a very good opportunity for the dev team to kind of sneak peek or Easter egg those interesting things. But getting back to the footage here, once again, we can see a ton of stuff going on, but again, a lot of this is looping, right? We see reoccurring characters just strolling around Starr Park. We have people having fun at arcades, eating at the Bull's Diner, and this continues pretty much so throughout this entire footage, right? But then moving along to the afternoon or later afternoon, where we can see some changes. We can see the sun setting, right? Which is incredibly fun and interesting, where we can see some physical changes within Starr Park itself. People are still here, but the day is winding down. We have custodians starting to sweep up and stuff like that. People still at the park. It's not closing time yet, but things are getting there. But then we make it to the dusk footage, where we can see basically the same footage, but just getting darker, less and less people hanging out at the park. There is a reoccurring joke that there is one individual that is literally at this arcade machine. He seems to be gambling literally the entire day, man. Don't gamble. But then that brings us pretty much so to the point where we're at right now on day 2. So if this continues, we'll see a reoccurring process where we see the whole transition of the day. And where we're at right now is nighttime, much like we were at the last episode that we posted on the channel. Now I'm liking the timeline that we're at right now, where at my time, when I'm able to make the video, we can see the brand new day and see some of the significant changes that happen every single day, because there are going to be significant things happening every single day here. One takeaway I think is incredibly important about day 1 is, of course, there are really interesting juicy Easter eggs or theories that we can piece together just based on the environment itself. We can see brawlers walking around and stuff like that, which is really important, and I think we can theory craft things around that and possibly speculate on future themes. But I think the main goal of day 1 and days to follow is a timeline of events that's going to end up happening, where we were able to see day 1 Starr Park, a nice vibrant setting where people are going there and enjoying themselves. It's a theme park, right? Something like Disneyland, but in the Brawl Stars universe. But as time goes on, I can almost guarantee that things are going to start to become not so nice, and that's when I think a lot of interesting stuff that we can theory craft about is going to happen. But at the very least, we were given quite a bit of interesting stuff during day 1. But next up, heading into day number 2 here, as well as a lot of interesting stuff and important stuff that we missed during our last episode. So first things first, if you guys haven't noticed yet, there is a date in the lower left-hand corner of the main monitor, and I guess all the other monitors, but it's easiest to see in the main. We have 4/11/1995, along with a time, right? Now, what I find incredibly fun about this is the date is pretty much so smack dab where we are on our calendar, except so many years in the future, right? We have November 4th right now. So at the point that I'm recording this video, we are 1 day behind that, but we're able to see stuff changing in due time, which I absolutely adore. So we started yesterday on November 3rd, and it is now November 4th. Another thing that I also wanted to bring up that I just didn't see in episode 1, but quickly realized and tested out for myself, but in the tweet that the Brawl Stars dev team posted about the Starr Park CCTV, there was hidden codes throughout it. You can see them kind of glitching out on the screen here if you watch, top right, left, bottom right there, left there. These codes are incredibly important with one of the functions or features that we talked about on day 1, and that is inputting those potential codes into the time coder. So the time coder are dates here, which if we continue with the format that we have here, it is going to be day, month, year, right? Now myself, along with the Starchive team, literally tested out all of the codes that we saw within that footage and didn't amount anything significant with it, but it is important to take away at least that these codes are important to find wherever those might be. When we find the correct codes or codes that mean something and we input them correctly, I mean, maybe the codes that we found in those videos might be the correct codes, but we just didn't arrange them in the right way. Maybe you guys have found that out. But I think the biggest takeaway of that is to keep our eyes open on codes. And of course, when we come across that myself, along with the Starchive team, I'll be able to show you what that amounts to. But for you guys also following along with this, keep your eyes open on the codes. But then it begs the question, what has changed or what has been updated here on day 2, November 4th of 1995? Well, the very first obvious one is we now have a pen on the table, left behind, I'm assuming, by Rick, R-I-K, a reoccurring figure that I think is going to be incredibly important moving forward. I've already seen a lot of really interesting theories that Rick could potentially be a brawler coming out in the future, the man behind the desk, which I absolutely adore. Hopefully that ends up happening, man. But on top of that, another significant thing that has been updated, and I'm guessing will be continued to update, is another journal entry of November 4th of 1995. We were able to see November 2nd along with November 3rd. The very first one on November 2nd, and this job is too easy. Paid benefits, 2 weeks. Time off watching an amusement park where nothing bad ever happens. Best security job ever. On November 3rd of 1995, we have this job is so boring, along with a little bit of cheating at tic-tac-toe with himself, I think. But then we have a brand new journal entry, and I think this is where we're going to be getting a lot of the play-by-play of what is going down in future dates, right? Rick is our scope into Starr Park during 1995 with these journal entries. But here for November 4th of 1995, we have, as always, everything is going great. Taking a long lunch, this job rules. So it's either Rick can't spell perfect, which I don't think there's been anything to show that he isn't a great speller so far with the journal entries, or he's not able to write or say perfect. Maybe some Starr Park happening, something affecting him or making sure he doesn't say perfect, which I guess is the running theories right now at the minute, but he just says great. I think, in my opinion, the very first bizarre behavior here, so maybe some stuff is about to happen during this daytime once day rolls around here for November 4th. But another significant change is if you click like the bottom left of the main monitor, you can actually have a function to fast forward, pause. Oh, all you have to do is just click the monitor, the middle monitor, all right? But a pretty dang cool feature, if you ask me. We can rewind here. It does go very, very slow, but if you do see something important, you can pause it, zoom in, take screenshots. Another change, possibly insignificant, but we are also seeing some interesting updates to other objects. Of course, we have the pen, but there's also a change to the coffee cup. As you can see, it's just rotated a little bit, right? Now, it's probably not important at all, but I think the main takeaway is that things are going to be updated on the desk, whether that is clickable things, maybe the telephone will be able to be clicked in the future, or other things that appear or change throughout the day. But as of right now, nothing has changed functionality wise. Now, before we get into, I guess, a few interesting theories, the only other thing that I think is important to take away, at least during the nighttime, we have advertisement guy pointing out here, counting all the staff or the people working during the nighttime. I think there's 11 guards, but he then checked again. Sorry, 9 guards and 2 janitors. 2 guards and a janitor are in the Rumble Jungle, 1 in the arcade, 4 in the hub area, 1 is standing, and 3 are moving around, including other janitor, and 1 at the park's entrance and Rick. So I believe there was a mention that as Starr Park was getting worse and worse, staff would get thinner and thinner, right? With layoffs or even people going missing, right? So I think one thing that would be important to take note of is counting the staff as we go on. If things go awry in Starr Park, we could be seeing notable figures like workers and stuff like that going missing. Now, after what we've just gone over, as for theory crafting here, what could end up happening or things that we find interesting going on at least already. Now, we already brought up a few of them, such as potential themes or unaccounted for locations within Starr Park that are new thanks to the CCTV footage that might amount to brand new themes in the future, or brawlers fitting into those themes, potential Willow theme coming out. Again, I'm not super certain about that. My gut ain't going crazy about it, but it's a potential at least. While at the same time, as we've been mentioning, another really interesting theory I've been seeing proposed is that seeing that there's a lot of similarities between the Starr Park CCTV along with the WKBRL, there very well could be a correlation or connection between the two. Not only do I think that the CCTV is going to be ripe with a lot of interesting sneak peeks for future updates, much like the WKBRL. But as Hunt points out here, that I think is a really interesting potential that will be clarified in due time once we wait a few days, I'm assuming. But Hunt says, guys, now that I think about it, we should relate this to WKBRL 3.0, the change to the WKBRL that happened before it went silent. The radio has a 24/7 loop, and this CCTV works 24/7. Let's try to see if there is any connections. For example, it should be morning at 8. If my calculations are correct, and I want to see if at 23:30 there is a fireworks show. Gosh, if anything connects, well, it's the best thing ever. At least this wouldn't make us forget about the old lore. So I don't think those fireworks ended up happening at the nighttime during the very first day. However, there very well could be some interesting connections, some situations that happened during the WKBRL 3.0 we might be able to see in real time during the CCTV footage if things do start happening. And I think if that's the case, it can open doors for some really interesting speculation and theory crafting to potential stuff relating to the CCTV footage that might amount to future implementations in updates or just continuations of lore here in the future. But yeah, that's just about all I got for you guys here in this episode today. A lot of interesting stuff that has happened at the beginning of day 2 and a full day 1 of the Starr Park CCTV footage. Again, be sure to stay tuned and subscribe to the channel. I'll be keeping you guys up to date with everything going on with this bad boy. A lot of interesting stuff has already happened, and I don't even think we scratched the surface. Things are not even in overdrive yet, so again, stay tuned. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed this, found this helpful, and we'll be seeing you in the next one. Adios, everyone. Back to theory crafting and speculation.